This podcast is brought to you by PLI, the Practicing Law Institute, providing resources to legal professionals and the law librarian community. For more information, go to pli.edu/librarian.
Hi, I'm Karen Osterly. Welcome to the Practicing Law Librarian podcast, presented by PLI's Legal Information Services Group. This podcast brings you conversations with and for the law librarian community. As a practicing law librarian myself, I've been working in legal information services for 34 years, currently with PLI's Library Relations Group. For this episode, my conversation with Sarah Glassmeyer took us from academic law libraries to the fast-moving world of legal tech, with stops at CALI, Harvard, the ABA Center for Innovation, RainCourt, and now Legal Tech Hub. She shared how librarian superpowers like cataloging, taxonomy, research, and vendor speak are exactly what legal tech needs, plus what it takes to track thousands of tools in a rapidly changing market. We also got into GenAI, the promise, the pitfalls, and why librarians should have a seat at the tech table. Come join us. I'm Director of Legal Research at Practicing Law Institute, and I have here with me Sarah Glassmeyer. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Can you tell me your title? And I think it's legal tech that you're with, right?
Yeah, so my job title is Director of Data Curation, and I work for Legal Tech Hub, which is a information provider / consultancy about everything to do with legal technology.
Okay. And how did you get there? I mean, you're a law librarian. Can you tell me a little about your track?
It's one of those things. In retrospect, all of my jumps and leap made sense and got me to where I am today. Although one of the things I will bring up several times, I'm sure in our conversation today, is that I want more law librarians in legal tech. Legal tech needs more law librarians. But I started off as an academic law librarian, very much not interested in technology at all. When I became a librarian, my goal was to work in legal history. And that was actually, my first bit of time as an academic. That was my research interest. That was what I did. And I only got into technology quite by accident because it was 2008. Economy dropped, bottom dropped out of the economy. I was working for a public law school library, and we did not have money to buy books. And kind of at that time is also, if you kind of think back to the boom of Web 2.0, yep, where, we were all Time Person of the Year. And it was kind of one of those things. I was like, well, it's so easy to get on the web now. Why can't government just put law online? Why are we buying books from Thomson Reuters and Lexis and all these other publishers? It should just be freely available. And so I got into technology because of the free law movement and just wanting ways to put law online, and kind of got into that. And I've always been a writer. And so I, as a blogging, that's actually just today I got an email from LiveJournal that is the 23rd birthday of my LiveJournal. So that's, right. So, I did not write, that was my LiveJournal, not my professional blog. I've been blogging professionally since 2007 under my real name. But that's, so I just always and again, also because I was an academic, and also it's I feel like a natural educator that I always just was I'm learning about all this. I'm just trying to figure out technology, having not been one of those kids that always went to computer camp or anything. And so it was I'll just share what I'm learning. And so started blogging and just kind of got, and just the, dealing with the politics of free law, honestly, that it was very controversial, the idea that you could just put law online and not have books in a library. And from there, I just kind of made a name for myself. And I literally, through a Twitter DM, was offered a job at CALI, which is the Center for Computer Assisted Legal Instruction. If you work in a law school, you probably are a member of CALI. And if you were a law student, you had CALI awards. And, so I was brought on to help kickstart their eLangdell open casebook project. So basically, casebooks that law students in America use are all basically appellate court cases. Appellate court cases are public domain. Why are we, again, paying all these commercial publishers for $200 for a book, which is basically just public domain information? So that was the thing. We started a publishing wing to do that. And that's kind of what I was in charge of for the most part. But, in literally like my first day at work, in talking to John Mayer, who was or still is the executive director of CALI, he was like, oh, by the way, we also do this other thing. It's called A to J author. It's, at the time, now I know it's it's an expert system / document automation tool to help self-represented litigants navigate court systems and court procedures, or even like some like basic transactional things. So like LegalZoom, Trust and Will, those are document automation tools. And like, basically you answer a questionnaire, makes like a will, or helps you make a business contract, or helps you file a something you need to file in a court for personal reasons. So that's what A.J. Author did. But when he was explaining it to me and like how it was, I was like, this is a reference interview. This is what you're doing. You are asking people questions, trying to navigate what their problem is, connect them to resources. I'm like, this is a reference interview. You just made a robo-librarian. And this is like 2011. So this is just to give you a timeline. But working at CALI, because it was a small organization, just like, this is a time when technology was starting to really hit law, going to like reinvent law conferences and just learning these things, that it was, learning more about how lawyers worked. And so that's, kind of like, that got me to legal technology. I mean, also one of my things is legal research tools are the original legal research or legal technology. So, and I'm even going back to like Shepard citation imprint is a piece of legal technology. The West key number system is a piece of legal technology. So that's, I feel like librarians, why we're so well positioned for many reasons, but it is that we have been dealing with legal technology for 100 years. I was talking to someone about the AALL conference, and I mentioned my first one was the 100th anniversary in 2005, and they're like, I'm sorry, what? 100 AALL has been going on since 1905. I'm like, yes. Librarians have been talking about these issues and like getting together for conferences for a century now. But so you got into legal technology, and then I was kind of like, I liked what I did, but I was like, I want to get back to the free law thing. And so I took a year and did a fellowship at Harvard. The Berkman Center for Internet Society and the Library Innovation Lab was my host. And I just kind of like did a survey of like free law, just kind of spent the year concentrating on that. And my fellowship ran out. And then there was a job at the ABA, American Bar Association, started a Center for Innovation. It was like, again, because innovation, big buzz. This is 2016. So innovation, huge buzzword. They started a Center for Innovation. They didn't really know fully what it was going to do, but I just like, I'll just send in a resume. I need a job. And I got it. So then I was like I think that was like, I can really see like, at CALI, I was very much still, working on the legal research lessons I did, and then the publishing. Like I still really felt that was really a foot in library world. Excuse me. But like, I think like once I moved to the ABA, then I'm like, okay, I'm fully now in lawyer world and legal tech world. And so I worked for the ABA for 4 years. Again, this is also like when COVID hit, and just the, like any nonprofit, there's budget issues, and also just the mission of trying to figure out what it was. And I was like, I liked it, but I was like, and while there, I like used my library skills to build a lot of tools. So what we kind of did was like consulting, like internal consulting, internal like intrapreneur, as they call it, but also like helping various like entities within the ABA build stuff. When we built, I did a big research project. This is another like a fun thing we did. So we did it ended up becoming like a website database of all the bar rules about things that apply kind of in the legal innovation sphere. So like, what are the rules about UPL in every state? It's a 50-state survey. It's what it was. Okay. So we did it. And we published it. And that was the thing. People were like, oh my God, did you hire a law firm to do it? I'm like, no, just one librarian and a Westlaw account and research. Because like what I did was actually like, as all this information was scattered around the ABA, it was just kind of collecting that information and creating this big, research project. But so it was what you just kind of like, I enjoyed it, but I was like, it's time to move on, especially like after COVID, and like we were start going back to office. I was like, I don't want to go back to the office. I really like working in my jammies. Right. So a job came open that seemed to be like actually made for me. And it was at a company called RainCourt, which was, they advertised themselves as the app store for legal. So in the legal world, at that time, it was still very controversial to have cloud-based legal tech tools. Right. And it still is a little bit. Some companies or firms still are nervous about it. So what RainCourt did was create like a private cloud. So it was like all these tools that were cloud only. It's like, we'll make it on our cloud. And that way, the law firms can like, it's more secure. So it's like still not quite as secure as on-prem, but then it's also the way the infrastructure was, it was much more push button. You could try stuff instead of having to like go through the 8-month process of getting everything like loaded into your system.
Right.
But they needed a curator to basically write up all the descriptions of all the legal tech products that were available on our platform. And so I applied and got it. Loved it. That was the thing. Like, I feel like I am in such the sweet spot of being a librarian and working in legal tech, is that I managed, and RainCourt unfortunately failed. So, but coincidentally, my boss was really good friends with Nikki and Jeroen, who are the CEO and co-founder of Legal Tech Hub. And so basically, like, Christian, the president of RainCourt, fired me. But he's like, but I have a meeting set up for you. This is on a Thursday. He's like, on Tuesday, I have a meeting with you with Nikki and Jeroen. They want to talk to you about Legal Tech Hub. And I just kind of slid into Legal Tech Hub.
Right.
And Legal Tech Hub has several facets. We have an advisory wing. We have, for both legal tech companies as well as law firms, corporate legal departments. We have a content wing where we are creating, basically like everything you need to know about purchasing or acquiring legal tech. That, like, you want to buy a document automation tool. These are the features that are common in document automation. These are the things you should look for. This is how you talk to the vendor about it, as well as news that happens. And then we have a directory of legal tech products, which is a library. It is a database collection library of currently over 3,000 legal tech products that me and my team oversee, that you just kind of constantly, this is right now, as we're recording this, Legal Week is happening, which is one of the two big conferences in legal tech world. And so everyone's like, submitting product updates and just, so we just kind of like, we have various facets we collect as far as like, how are they deployed? Do they use generative AI? Do they use agentic AI? Where do they have hosting? Where do they have, so everything that you would want to know about a legal tech product, we try to collect. And so it's really nice that I get to work in legal tech. I get to see everything that's happening, but I don't have to be locked into one funnel, so I don't have to say, I don't have to be like, our product is the greatest. This is the greatest contract review tool ever to exist. and so I don't have to ever do that, but I can also just like have the 10,000 foot view of what's happening. I don't have to only concentrate on one, but it is like very much, I have a team of librarians. I'm hiring someone now and I'm looking at people with library. That was a goal. Like, it was, when I was creating my job ad for my new hire, it was, we were kind of thinking, do we want someone who's worked in legal technology, or do we want someone that's worked in libraries, database management? And I was like, if we have to choose, because that's what I'm discovering, there aren't many people that have their feet in both worlds yet. Right. That I want someone who's the library skills. I want someone who understands the word taxonomy, who's heard the word taxonomy before, and understands the importance of tagging and keeping things organized and making it findable for our users. But yeah, it's just, I lead a very charmed life, I have to say. I just keep falling, I'm in the right place at the right time. Like, I credit so much of where I am to luck, and just being like in the right, I lucked out that I became a librarian right when Web 2.0 was a thing. And so, I gave talks very early about like Facebook, and like, here's how to set up a Facebook page for your library. And it was just because I was young and, it was just not scared to like push buttons, but like, I don't feel like it was like any like great insight. It was more, I just happened to be there when Facebook was a new thing and I could talk about a new thing. And the same thing with, just happened to be like, I think if I didn't live in Valpo, I live in Valparaiso, Indiana, which is an hour outside Chicago. If I didn't live in Valpo and could just like easily transition to working at CALI in Chicago, that that was just kind of easy. Like, it worked out very well.
Right.
Yeah. It just, and again, like, just, hey, I need a job. Oh, the ABA just started this thing and they don't really know what they want from people. So I could just throw my CV in the ring for that one. But yeah.
Wow. Well, it's kind of astonishing, because I could not get a handle on what you exactly do and what legal tech exactly does. So you guys you're not a vendor. You're not an information provider. You're more, what you built when you came on was a catalog. You cataloged all these legal resources. Legal tech
so the directory
resources.
It's a catalog. It's your library. Yeah. So that was a funny thing. So I wrote a piece, kind of a similar, like, how did your career go for this? And, it's like, it's a library. It's like, people are like, oh yeah, I never really thought about it that way. Like, yeah, it's a catalog. It's an OPAC, but it's
right. Wow. Very cool. Very cool. So are you a lawyer too?
I am. Yeah. So to take it back a little bit longer. So my undergrad degree was in anthropology. And that is also one of those things that people are just like, I feel like I use my anthropology mindset every day. So my undergrad was in anthropology, and I specialize more in physical anthropology. So the bio, like, and this is supposed to, again, this is like mid-90s. It was like one of those things that was a dream, like, because DNA was just coming out, like we were able to like finally sequence human DNA. I was like, gosh, can you imagine if we like were able to take samples of DNA all around the world and maybe see how it's changed? Now it's like 23andMe. Like, that's the one thing I always laugh about people who think I'm like a futurist or something. I am so bad at predicting the future. Like, I am like constantly astonished at things. So I never would have dreamed we are. But so I applied for grad school. And honestly, I didn't get any scholarships. And I was like, at that time, like, I can't sink $100,000 into a PhD in anthropology, knowing I'm only going to make like $30,000 a year as a professor, assuming I can get a tenure job,
Exactly.
And so I think, like many smart kids, I was, just like, well, you could go to law school or you could go to med school. And I was like, I need to take a physics class to take the MCAT. And I was like, I don't want to take physics. I went to law school. and like literally it was day 3 of orientation week that I was like, I made a huge mistake. I made a huge mistake. I was like, my undergrad degree's in anthropology, so I don't know what to do. And so I went to law school at the University of Cincinnati, and there was a librarian there. And I don't know if I feel like I've told him this, but I feel like also maybe he doesn't know. So his name was Rick Goheen. He collected M&M paraphernalia. And so I was in his office, not asking for research help because I didn't ever ask for help back then. But he had M&Ms always on his desk. And so I was just getting some M&Ms. And I noticed he had on his wall a library degree in addition to a law degree. And also, again, I'm like, I was like, oh, librarians, you get to just sit at the reference desk and read books all day. That sounds like fun. I'll go to library school. And so that was like how I got myself through law school, was the idea I didn't ever have to actually practice law. But that's the thing, I was like kind of invested. I was like, I'll just stick it out, get my degree. I've passed the bar too, but that's because I was like, well, this is the only, like, the best chance to ever do this. I will never remember this stuff after this summer. So I took the bar, but yeah, I immediately went to library school because I was like, I knew I would never want to be a lawyer.
Okay.
And library school, another very much a happy accident that I was like, these are my people. Because
Exactly.
I remember very much being in a course or this class and just sitting there. And so one of the things I do, and I'll be interested if you do it or like listeners do this who are other librarians. So I'll get like, again, M&Ms, and I will like dump them all out and then separate out like the brown, the green, the red by color, and then like just eat them in order of color. But I was in class too, and I looked around. Other people were doing that too, with like Skittles and M&Ms and
really
other candy. I was like,
oh, that is so cool.
Organization.
So you found your crew.
Yeah. But again, like, this is a thing where I was more interested in, I like the reference stuff. And like, I was very much a front of the office person where I was like, I like talking to patrons. I like helping them find answers. I like search, again, also that thing I always like tell people I use a lot is, librarians like to search, everyone else likes to find. I love like hunting down, like, give me a hard question. Like, I love hunting down weird pieces of information. And I like begrudgingly took taxonomy. I begrudgingly took cataloging. I begrudgingly took, this is 2003, 2004. So it was, basic database design and HTML, like really, intro to computer skills. But I was just like, I am never going to use a computer. I do not want to ever data cataloger.
Yeah, I'm never going to need that.
I know. And those are like the classes I used the most. And that was, when, again, like 2 or 3 years later, when I was a baby librarian and like starting a blog, that was the thing where I was like, oh, thank God I kind of understand HTML because I can now make my blog pretty. And like, those things I did is I always like tried to, I was very active in AALL at the time and the little subsets. And I was just like, I volunteered to be a webmaster. And I was like, I don't know anything about this, but I'll just listen to force myself to learn that, taking care of their websites. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I just did not think I'd ever use those skills, but it's like, that is the most important thing I learned in library school was, basic taxonomy, basic cataloging, basic getting into database design and computer design, just understanding all that, the back office stuff. Right. That is actually where the skills I use today more. Although it is also the how to talk to vendors. That's, as part of my job when we are, onboarding a vendor or just, trying to figure out what a product is. Because that's the thing, like when I moved to RainCourt and even now, I did never practice law. But like that's what doesn't, when I'm saying this a lot now, I'm interviewing people for jobs to work with me, is that it doesn't matter. That's because no one knows, like I know a little bit about a lot of different types of legal tech, but no one knows everything, so that's, it's very much people, if you're a transactional lawyer, the processes and all the different steps and workflows that needs. But like, I don't expect anyone to know that for every vertical of legal tech. And that was when I first came to RainCourt, and I do that now. Now when I'm like, I'll sit down and do a product demo with a vendor and ask them very basic questions, because I don't know. And it's, I think that's one of the things that the best thing that happened when I became a librarian. I never like to ask questions, and again, if you're thinking this is like late 90s where we didn't have phones, I would drive around lost before I ever stopped at a gas station to ask for directions. I was just like not comfortable admitting ignorance. And then I became a librarian where people were asking me questions all the time, and it just really lost any fear of ever.
Right.
Like there's no dumb questions. Always just ask your question. And so now I very much, when I'm talking to a vendor, it's always like, well, what do people do without your product? Like, what is the steps in place? Because like the first demo I ever did for RainCourt was for a patent tool. And the whole patent, that is like a weird world. And that's like, you can kind of pick up on like how, litigation works from TV, and, you kind of like understand like transactional law or contracts. And you've heard the patent researching process is just different than anything. And so that was like a good icebreaker for me, where it's just understanding like, okay, so this is how lawyers do this without technology. And now we're trying to automate it, and that's figuring out the process and how these tools kind of fit into the various processes. So yeah, I mean, it's just basically, I'm doing reference interviews on legal tech founders all day, where it's just, what does this product do? What do you, because that's one of the things I pride myself on in my work, is that, it's funny because especially when I started off in technology and the legal world, it was very much the nonprofit world and the access to justice world, where it was, people just held together with like gum, bubble gum and paper clips. I mean, it's really just trying to make things work. There was no money. Right. And as when I came to RainCourt, I was like, oh, I'm going to be working with like big law and corporate legal counsel now. And so these are like billion-dollar companies and multi-million-dollar international law firms. It's going to be so like amazing. It's going to be like Star Trek or something. No, it is just wild how I've learned how people do stuff. Just like there is still very much, legal tech companies are founded by, around a kitchen table, that it's people, they had a problem and they just wanted to fix it, and they created a tool, they hired a developer. And also just like one of the things, so one of the tools I always use as an example of legal tech that I think is just fascinating, because it's a huge innovation and is like saving so much time. But basically, if you think about, these giant merger and acquisition documents and like huge transactional things. And so there are basically tools developed to go through these big contracts, transactional documents, and find all the pages that need to be signed, and then make a list of like who needs to sign them and where, and then just track to make sure it's been signed. That's it. That is basically all the tool. They creates what's called a signature packet, but so it's just so everything gets signed. It's like innovation. But that's the thing. Prior to that, what was done, it would be a giant conference table in a big New York City office, and a new associate or a paralegal would be going through and creating physical piles of paper. Right. So it is an innovation. But that's, I think there's this idea that technology is doing magic, and it's really like some really basic tasks that prior to this lawyers did through, or more associates did through packs of paper. And just like realizing like how many, again, these billion-dollar transactions prior to the past few years were basically managed by an associate keeping lists of things in Excel. I mean, it's just crazy, like how anything ever got done, or how anything ever did not just fall apart because it's just not the proper tool for what they needed. And just, it's really wild to see like all the different, and again, they use that as just like one type of lawyer, one type of task. And the other thing that I really like about legal technology is, even though I work primarily in the big law, mid-sized world now, where it is not necessarily people law, like that's the thing about how big the lawyer world is. And whenever I talk to law school classes, which I love to do, I always kind of like set the stage by think of Disney World and the Magic Kingdom, and specifically in Florida, where it's, the Magic Kingdom, but you have, Land of Tomorrow, and you have the Frontier Adventureland, and you have the Fairy Tale Land. And that's what law is like, in that there are these different, like you have
different
the
areas.
Magic Circle or the AmLaw 50 corporate attorney in New York City, and you have a little public defender in Chicago, and you have a small solo practitioner in Lexington, Kentucky, and everyone's a lawyer, but we're all in different worlds and like completely different, workflows, practices. But the thing that's exciting about that, so if you've ever been to Disney World, you never see like Mickey taking his head off and having a smoke break, or you never see like anything unpleasant. It's because they have tunnels underneath Disney, the Magic Kingdom.
Right.
You can actually take a tour of them. And that's why I always say that in law, those tunnels are data and legal information. So that, like, it doesn't matter what kind of law, and that's how we all kind of connect to each other. We're all using data, we're all using legal information. And it's just kind of like, that's how we communicate in these hidden tunnels. So even though the worlds don't seem the same, they're connected. And that's actually like where legal technology lives, on all the data, on all the information that we provided from courts or filings, that sort of thing. And that's also because legal tech is data and information based. That's why we need law librarians, because we are the experts at managing that and understanding it and not scared of it, so. And then I usually like launch into the various types of legal tech, but that's how I set up. And that's how I think about it. That's because I was kind of coming at it from an outsider, right. Realizing, because so much when you talk about legal technology, it's one of those things, like I think in people's head, they think AmLaw 50 lawyer, but that's not the only kind, or depending on what they are, or they're thinking of the legal aid attorney, or they're thinking of the small solo practitioner, but it's all the same. And like a lot of these tools could be used by all the different types of, I would say, patrons of customers, that just because they're different worlds. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about what you're saying about legal tech. I mean, the first legal tech was probably paper and pen. I mean,
right, yeah.
Even paper and pencil before that.
I've brought up my, legal research tools were the first legal tech on social media before. It's kind of funny because then have debates with people like, oh, in some ways it's like vellum, like putting laws on vellum even as a form of legal technology. Or, some people would even say like the Hammurabi Code, putting it in cuneiform on a clay tablet. It's like, yeah, absolutely. It's anytime, because that's, I think, it's so weird that legal research tools, but I think that's changed now because of GenAI. But, I think initially legal research tools were, I don't say like ghettoized, but like not seen as legal tech in some ways, even though they were like, again, like West and Thomson Reuters, and, they were the first to kind of go digital, the first to kind of automate. And that was, but it was like not, and I do think it's like that pink ghetto, where because many librarians are female, and it's seen as a female coded, profession, that's like, oh, research is not legal work. It's it's not as cool as doing a transactional thing, or not as cool as doing like the actual like courtroom work. But yeah, I think now it's kind of funny that like the big innovations, like the first real big ones, came out of legal research with Case Text / now CoCounsel /
right, exactly,
VLEX and Vincent. Yeah.
Well, clearly you've been a leader in this whole process. When you were talking earlier about your career path, you kept reminding me of a book called The Swallow. It's about, do you know it by any chance?
I don't think I do.
It's a wonderful book, and it's about this guy who studies languages, and I forget who he works for, but they are given to taking him and dropping him in a town where nobody speaks English. So he learns the culture and he learns the language, and he develops tools. And his whole life, they keep dropping him in these different places, usually in crisis situations. And so he learns it quickly. Anyway, in the book, they discover signs of life on a different planet, and they take him with them. And he gets there and he realizes his whole life, all his training has been for this moment, and he's able to connect with the other life form and figure out their language and create bonds and things. Anyway, you were
I
talking about
feel like that a lot, where it is, I do want to say, like, absolutely was not planned like that. It was really much just finding things that interest me and kind of making that leap based on that. And it just turns out,
Right.
I do like how these moments like, well, maybe I'm just fooling myself and thinking that it is important to know like how to do a reference interview and how to understand like the ethnographic kind of research on how tools are used. But so yeah, I mean, I could not like to me anyway, in my mind, it does seem like if I were telling someone who wanted to be like in this world, I would say like, well, major in anthropology and then get your library degree and then work with the public for a few years. And then,
but I take issue with one thing you said, because my undergrad is in philosophy, because I knew I was going to grad school, but it's not between law school and med school. It's between law school and business school.
Yeah, well now, yeah.
I never once considered med school. I'm not a science. I mean, I'm a math person, but I'm not a science person. No, I was like, should I go to law school? Should I go to business school? I'll go to business school. It's only 2 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, people should consider the 3. If they're a science person, that's different. And then I was with Matthew Bender and LexisNexis for 25 years. And then, but in midstream during that time, I was like, okay, that's the job I should have. I'm really more a librarian profile than a salesperson profile. So I got the MLS, at night, fully remotely. And then when I was Lexis reorg every year. So fine, I did.
I used to work at the University of Dayton, and
I didn't make the one didn't make the one through 2002, but then they had me come back, and then I didn't make the one in 2014. I was like, okay, well now I have this other degree. I'm ready for my second career, and so law librarian, and then PLI. Now, how have you used PLI at your different places?
So I think I've used it primarily from the CALI aspect, and just like
good.
Either, and I feel like I maybe have taught CLEs for PLI or definitely have attended them. But yeah, I mean, that's the one thing. And I think it's because I'm an academic or at heart, where it was, I am so big on the idea of reskilling and just professional education. I mean, a couple of things, the actual function of the CLE, I have a lot of issues with, but the idea generally of professional education and especially if you can get in again, I love working alone. I love working virtually, but there is something about coming together in community and talking to people one-on-one that, can't replicate that yet virtually, where it is, the idea of learning about these things. And that's and maybe it is naive, but I do feel like the solution to most problems is just education and just being able to learn more about the topic or, and also, again, because I think I did, not as a technologist, did not grow up going to computer club or camp, that I think there is a lot of people who think oh, I could never do technology. I'm not a techie person. And now even our techie people aren't techie people, especially in the past 6 months with vibe coding. Yeah. No one, you don't, the barriers keep getting lowered and lowered and lowered. Which I mean is a good thing. I'm not, that's but really, if you don't even have to know how to do basic hosting or basic mainframe development. You can create and work in tech without any sort of coding skills.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what I like about nonprofit companies like PLI or just other ones that just help people figure out what to do. Because I mean, it is hard to learn on your own as well. I mean, I even still want to take classes and certifications about some things just because I tell myself I'll learn them, but I'll never learn. I never take the time when you have a date to go to something. It's kind of I've started working with a personal trainer. That's a thing.
Yeah, if you have a structure, it helps.
Yeah. I would never go to the gym on my own, but I know 7:30 a.m. every Wednesday, she's waiting for me. Okay, I have to go. It's waiting for me. But yeah.
Right. Can you talk about the leading that you've done in these? I mean, to me, you've been at the forefront of a number of different steps. And I don't know if you ever thought of it as leadership.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it was leadership or so much as just not appreciating the consequences sometimes of my actions. Okay. I mean, I think, it's so funny, you starting off with librarians. And again, stereotypes are stereotypes and there's always differences. But I do think like the librarian stereotype of not wanting to make waves in some ways, I think there's like two different kinds of librarians. I think there are some that really don't like making waves. And I think there are some that live to make waves. And I really never thought of myself as a live to make waves type. But, it's really interesting. Like how when I worked at like, and this thing I like tell people now that I kind of live outside of library land totally, where it's like, I feel like I would do talks when I was a librarian and people looked at me like I was, like some wild punk rocker. And I was saying like pretty basic things. And again, this is like, I kind of remember like the pushback about digitization. And that was, and doing things more on the web and doing more like social media. And that's always, what I tell lawyers now is like this digital transformation thing librarians went through like 20 years ago. So that's
right.
Take a lesson from us when we started to talk about like meeting our patrons with like the virtual, the website, which is like the virtual branch and that kind of thing. And like now your law firm clients, they don't want to come to your office and meet you. They want to meet you virtually or meet you. And this is even like prior to COVID. And Zoom and everything. But like thinking of ways of meeting your patrons or clients where they are, that was something librarians struggled with. But I do feel like, I think part of it is I just never like realized what I was saying was controversial. And so I do feel like I kind of just spoke my mind. But like now, especially I feel very safe that I've achieved everything I ever wanted to achieve in life. Like I don't worry so much about my own personal success anymore. So now I feel like I should say something because I don't care. Like, what are they going to do to me? Like, oh, I'll just go work at Costco. Like, I'll be happy doing that. I'll go, like, I grew up on a farm. I'm not scared of like getting dirty or hard work. I don't need to be doing this. So like, if I get drummed out of the world, that'll happen. But yeah.
I don't think you're in any danger.
Like it's hard to get like drummed out of the legal tech world, but like,
right.
I know like I was very much just mouthy, but I think it wasn't more like I was trying to be. I do have like a pretty strong, it depends on the topic. And that's the thing, I do have a very strong moral code. And like, that was the thing with like free law. Like I very much was like, you guys, this is crazy that we are paying money for this.
Yes.
We are, and
it's public record.
It's public information, and it's the way that has been locked down by Thomson Reuters and Lexis is not okay. It's just not okay. And I just can't not say that it's not okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I do know I had but also part of it was also just because I was an early adopter of Twitter or blogging that, and that was a funny thing. Like because I was like, I just made like because I was an early adopter, it's like a snowball effect where you just like people will make lists like here's the top 10 voices to follow on Twitter. And I just happened to be on a list because I was an early adopter. But it was also funny because I worked at the University of Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And so UK was always like kind of, and every now and then I'd be identified as a British law librarian. It's like, no, the other UK, the Wildcats one. But so I mean, like every now and then you'll find a list where it's like British law librarian, Sarah Glassmeyer. It's like, no. Kentucky law librarian, Sarah Glassmeyer. But, again, this is, I also chalk it up to luck where Twitter is a format that works really well for me, that I was able to, it just is the way my brain works for short form.
Yeah, succinct messages that worked for you.
Yeah. So that, again, it's like, especially nowadays I see like, on LinkedIn, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn because all of their social media kind of has died out, professional social media and sharing information, but also because I'm just constantly there doing research. But, I see now like half of my LinkedIn feed is people telling you how to get more traffic on LinkedIn. And I've never worked at that. I mean, it's good to do it. Like people should work if they want to have more of a media presence, like, create yourself a content calendar and like commit to posting once a week or once a month, whatever you want to do. I've never done that because it just comes naturally to me to just like, think of something and I post it.
Well, that's not what you're there for.
Yeah.
That's not what you're there for. I want to lead you to talk about GenAI.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I figure you're probably best positioned of anybody I can think of.
Oh, well.
Legal tech, and everything that's going on. And you've interviewed all these guys and you're tracking all the characteristics and capabilities. What do you think that's going to mean for libraries? What do you think that's going to mean for law and law firms and law schools and our future in the country?
So I have like some very positive thoughts about it, and I have some very terrifying thoughts about it.
Yeah.
So I'll start with the positive, I guess. So I see GenAI very much like Web 2.0 in that it breaks down barriers to entry. So, 2005, prior to 2002, let's say, if you wanted to have a website, you had to open up like a notepad doc, type, HTML, and start literally writing code.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you could just go to blogger.com. I want this color background, and here's a WYSIWYG text box I could just type, and it's just on the web. Yep. But also like Web 2.0, there were other things. Like I remember, one of the things I did when I was at UK and I love doing, I want to bring back MOOCs, and I feel like we should do more MOOCs where the massive online open courses. We did like a mini MOOC. There was, it's very much library focused. There was, I think it was out of Charlotte Mecklenburg Public Library. It was called 23 Things. Like there was like their own internal personal, what do you call it? Like professional development kind of thing. But it was like Web 2.0 focused, but it was like, okay, start a blog. It was, there was go to Delicious and start doing, folksonomy tagging and like tagging websites, or using like all the various Web 2.0 tools that were available then. And because it was more than just blogging, it was more than just even social media. There were tools. I remember there's one called Rolio, where it's basically API connectors, or Yahoo pipes. So it made things you could do, like connecting information and getting like data flow, like kind of interesting thing. That was much easier to do with Web 2.0. Now with GenAI, it's kind of like the next level up. So it's not just even connecting information, it is adapting it and like creating content, but also because of the power, it's again, just kind of like Web 2.0 is more than blogging. GenAI and LLMs are more than just ChatGPT creating content for you. It is very much, and now with agentic tech as well, you can like vibe code a website, or say, connect this data source to this data source and do this action with them. Right. And you just like tell it to do it. So you don't have to like code anything. And it, again, it's not perfect right now, but like all the Microsoft integrations, I wish I were better at Excel, and maybe I never have to be better at Excel. No, I think I maybe kicked that can down the road long enough that now I can just tell Copilot to do all these Excel formulas for me. But so it's like, it makes it a lot easier to get into that technology. And so I think for like libraries and information guardians, they're, I love analogies. So that's another analogy I use a lot of time is, so there's something called low background steel. Okay. Basically, after World War II and the nuclear bombs, that kind of infected steel and the raw materials with nuclear waste. And that's really not, it's not like a lot, but it's not good, but also it's not like rooted. But if you want to make like certain medical devices, you can't have any of that background radiation involved. Right. So for a while there, they were like, a lot of the warships that were sunk after World War I, they were like harvesting that steel because it was clean. Mm-hmm. And they could use it for then medical devices or things that the background radiation would affect it. And I kind of wonder, like right now, because so much content, there's something called like the dead web theory, where so much of the internet is now just being populated by bots and then content created by bots. And then, because the way GenAI works is that it, kind of reads existing content. There's a whole other like conversation to be had about copyright and like whether or not that's okay and fair use, but take an existing content and then basically it's just like a next word predictor is how it works, is basically that. So anyway, so like there's this thought that it's like all this content is just now made by machines, and then it like that content is like used and then made more, but it's kind of like just folding over and like where like I just feel like there's human created content, and ironically enough, it's like probably locked in static forms like books right now. That is the low background steel of information. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to really make sure we keep these sources of unpolluted information safe right now. Mm-hmm. I almost like to have like a seed bank like they have for like in the event of nuclear war, that we know this content is safe. And like the one thing for like the legal world, which really freaks me out, is obviously we've all heard about hallucinated cases. And, I think there's now like 1,000 that like there's a guy that tracks them. And like, those are the ones that have been caught. But the way that, and this is like something and it's probably a silly fear, but this is something I've always worried about. The way legal information is that I was like, well, what happened in like the 1970s? Some West editor mistagged a case. And so it never showed up with the right key number. And like somewhere out there, there is actually a perfect case on point that is never going to be found because it has the wrong key number. Mm-hmm. And so again, like I've been paranoid before GenAI, but that's the thing. So now I'm like, okay, so all these corpuses are being possibly polluted with hallucinated cases that didn't exist. And I mean, and it's not just practitioners. There's been judges caught using, actually it's their clerks more likely, but like there are decisions coming out with like clearly hallucinated, generated material. And what if it like slips through somehow? And at some point in time, this fake case might just become like cited. And so I do worry about that. And maybe it's an unfounded worry, but I do feel like we need to start making sure we have walled off sources of information that have never been touched by GenAI, that we can say, okay, if we need to like start over, this is a clean source that definitely doesn't have anything hallucinated in it, that doesn't have anything generated by a non-human, just so we know it's clean. Clean feels like a very prejudicial terminology, but like clean. And so that's the one thing I do worry about, like especially with legal information. But as far as like even like law and, that's the thing I kind of been joking, but it's also kind of sad that, I was a teacher and, I taught shepherdizing. I was always like, okay, you guys, even though there's a red flag there or a green flag, you still need to read the case. You'll read the case, right? Yes, Professor Glassmeyer will read the case. I'm like, I'm starting to think no one ever really read those cases because they're just like taking
It's possible.
Yeah. So it's like, I think, that's again, like kind of the thing where I've been explaining to people, like, this has been a kind of known issue in legal research tech, that we've been trusting these algorithms and trusting these systems for making decisions for us. And in theory, we were always supposed to go back and check. But we're people, who knows? And that's the thing, now it's even just the exponential amount of created content as well as created, decisions where it is, for a contract review tool that it's, in theory, like some of the contract review tools, how they work is you have your kind of like standard playbook. This is the contract, this is what our company does. Like, this is what we like for these various types of clauses. This is what our or opposing counsel has, or the company we're trying to do business with has sent back as their version of the contract. Compare them and just flag anything we should need double check.
Right.
What if it didn't flag it and you just like sign off like, yeah, sure, we like that. We like that version of that NDA because you didn't check it because you trusted the computer. So that's the thing. Like, I think we are in this process now where we are co-working with, I keep using it. I like to use the term robot lawyer because it's so ridiculous because it's clearly not a robot lawyer, but we are now having robot associates and robot associate lawyers working with us, and we're co-working. And I think we need to, right now, it just seems like the power imbalance. You need to like realize you're managing that robot lawyer. And I don't think people have fully gotten into that mindset yet, where it is, no, I need to review everything it does, or I need to just make sure, or like, it's like the one thing I found like in working with GenAI, and maybe, I now manage a team. I am not a natural manager. I do not like telling people what to do. But like, but the one thing that's so funny is in working with GenAI, which I do use like in my professional life. I don't use it so much in my personal life, but, I have used it to help me like draft content or review content from vendors and just like kind of like organize it, is that you have to really write it. Like you have to like make sure because it will just start doing what it wants. And I've become like a better human manager by like, part of it is also because you have to like really in prompting. Oh, this is the one thing. When I first, like, again, like 2 years ago when GenAI was like really hitting the news and LinkedIn, and everyone's like, here's the best way to craft a prompt. And here's how, I'm like, this is making a Boolean operator string. What are you guys talking about? Like, this is crafting a prompt. This is back to using Westlaw in 2002. What are you guys talking about?
Yeah, we've been doing this for years.
So, I mean, that's the thing. I think that librarian mindset for tackling GenAI is that talking to, prompting a GenAI tool is so much, that mindset of like, what is my end goal? What do I want it to do? What are the steps I have to do? What it needs to do it? And I feel like librarians are really good about breaking that down and just like crafting like, okay, I want to, these terms within 50 words of this terms and then these research, so I mean, it's the same sort of breakdown of process and then like putting it into a, prompt box or a search string, but that's, it makes me better, like, as far as like thinking through the steps of a process, like, okay, this is how I need this listing content to look like. Look at this source, it's exactly like I would explain it to an assistant, but it's like, here's how you do this. So it's made me even better at like breaking down processes and like learning how to think through what I actually want and how to actually do something by using the tech. And it's easier to like tell the GenAI what to do. Although I still say please and thank you, and apparently you're not supposed to do that. It's like, I'm from Indiana. I'm going to say please and thank you.
So where do you see the future of GenAI?
I'm really bad about predicting things. The one thing that also makes me really, really nervous is the amount of money flowing into this world right now. And that's, I mean, both in like, well, it's one of the interesting things also with GenAI that's happening right now. Prior to this, legal tech was this weird niche little corner of technology. Investors did not want to touch legal tech because it was always weird about UPL or unauthorized practice of law, or just the way lawyer finances are, that it just wasn't seen as a valuable technology world. And that's changed since quite a lot. And so again, we are recording this in March of 2026. Yesterday, my content team just put a thing out. We've crossed $1 billion in funding for legal tech alone in 2026.
My God. Wait, in 26?
In 26, yes. In the 3 months or 2.5 months of 2026, $1 billion of funding has flowed into legal tech.
Wow.
Yeah. And and so that's, and again, like some of the really big ones, they use, some of them have like their own models or a mixture, but also they do very much rely on Anthropic and OpenAI and the other, and Gemini and, all the big things. And so on one hand, it's kind of nice that, there is money flowing in. I do like it, but like the thing, like, again, it's maybe because I did grow up on a farm and I've never been someone who really cares about money or really is focused on finances. The idea that, I'm like, if you need like this many millions of dollars just to operate, like, what is legal tech going to become legal is already a luxury good for people. Like, so many people can't afford attorneys. So many people can't, get legal help. It is like, is legal tech going to become a luxury good that only the most well-paid attorneys can actually use it? And that's the thing, I'm sure people will say, I'm kind of cooking a blog post on this topic right now. I was thinking about it in the shower, actually, because another big announcement came out yesterday, where it's like, they will say like, oh, because we are, we will create packages for the small and solo and the nonprofit world. It's like, well, yeah, because I kind of very much remember lawyers not being able to afford Lexis and Westlaw in 2005. That's why they came to my library, because they could not afford their own subscription. So I do kind of wonder if it's going to, like, all the financial things flowing in, because it's just going to be too expensive for most lawyers or legal professionals to use these tools. And that's the thing, again, I feature this in my talks often, that, prior to this, this world, that it was very much that, whether you had access to your own private law firm library and your own private law firm research databases, you could do that. Or like, we had law libraries that were open to the public and open to the practicing bar. So bar association law libraries or courthouse law libraries, they could still basically have the same tools that it didn't matter like what law firm you worked at.
Yeah,
you had
that big law
access
had
to the same tools, although you did have like some barriers because you had to go to the law library to get them. But now these tools, which like exponentially speed up your work processes, it's not an even playing field now. So like having access to a Harvey, having access to a spell book, having access to a VLEX Vincent, if you don't have access, it takes you from drafting that first brief draft from 2 days to 15 minutes, and then you review it, hopefully, and edit it. But before, there was an even playing field. Like the playing fields are now blown apart. So that's like a problem, that because it's all this money flowing in, but also legal tech is not an island anymore. So the way OpenAI goes, all these other products go. So I don't have a strong financial brain. I don't have Like, I'm not someone that like can look at the books of a company and see how like good they are, but I read blogs from people who are that kind of person, and they show like how the various, hardware providers and software providers in this GenAI LLM world are kind of very incestuous. It's like, well, we pay you money for your code and you pay us money for our servers. It's like, it's like a shell game. So I do worry because there's so much valuation, because, the financial costs of running data centers, the environmental costs of running data centers, it's like physically the hardware, like the raw materials needed to run these things is running out. Mm-hmm. What happens when it all goes away or just like is suddenly not financially viable? So I do kind of like, are we putting all of our eggs in these baskets that are not like very firm? So but I do kind of worry about the fact all that financial incestuousness and overlapping and how that's going to like be going on. But I just, both like the financial viabilities of the companies, but if they are successful, what does that mean for people being able to afford them who need to be able to afford them? So I worry a lot about that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a downer. Sorry.
No. It's important to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, the resources that these data centers are taking really troubles me.
Yeah.
But so I don't want to keep you forever. Is there anything else that you want to say? Do you want to talk about the most important learnings that you would share with fellow law librarians, or what you wish you had known when you began your career, or anything else that you'd like to say?
I think it's going to end on a strong encouragement for law librarians to look at legal tech as a career opportunity. Both if you still want to stay, again, like there are pluses and minuses for working for, because again, most legal tech companies, aside from like the really big guys, and that's just like working in another corporate environment, are very much startups. And that is I love it. I love being able to just kind of like build things and like, okay, we're starting from scratch and we're trying to figure out how this company actually works. And we're trying to figure out like what we want to do and like product changes. And like, we started off, it was kind of like the directory and the pieces of content. Now we have like a really full-fledged advisory wing, and we have a full-fledged events wing. And, we're going from like 3 people to 30, so it's just kind of fun, that rocket ship life.
Right.
But like also like it's nothing, like it's not better. It's just, it works for me, but like I would die in a law firm, I think. But like some people like that structure. But I think like if you want to work in a law firm or want to work in a corporate legal, try to like, and also like for people who aren't librarians listening to this, involve your law librarians in your tech acquisition implementation processes, because we know how to get tech used by people. We know how to use tech. We know how to talk to vendors. I think you don't have to hire an innovation staff. You've got those people there. They are on staff already that you could like lean on, especially if you're like ramping up. So this is what, like legal tech is not, kind of like that one joke about the futures here is just not evenly distributed. I think that is very much the case in law, that so many law firms are still just like, ooh, we should probably have that kind of tool. Where do we start?
Right.
And so I think law librarians are kind of like this untapped resource that law firms could just lean on, or other like entities could lean on to help make those decisions. And again, because all of this is information database and data based, that they do need information professionals who understand information architecture. That's, all of these tools depend on having your information in a usable format, in a way that it's
accessible, that you can find it.
Yeah. And many people don't have that, or even like understanding how to connect information together to then these tools so they can do their magic. So I think there is, both in legal tech companies as well as in the end user worlds, a need for that librarian mindset to understand how things should actually go together. Yeah. So my biggest thing, don't think about that for everyone. More law librarians and legal tech. That is the tagline. Yeah.
Great. That's wonderful. And that's a fabulous place to close. So don't take off, but I do want to thank you for joining me. This has been fascinating and a real pleasure.
Thanks for listening to The Practicing Law Librarian, part of PLI's Ever Current podcast. Be sure to subscribe and listen to our latest episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. And to learn more about the Practicing Law Institute, please visit pli.edu. To learn more about PLI Plus, which provides electronic access to the full collection of PLI Press publications, and schedule a demo with a member of our team, please visit pli.edu/plus. Please note that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast represent those of the individuals being interviewed and not necessarily those of PLI.